Hello.
Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
It's another week of Case Files
With Kat
and Ashley.
Woo.
Woo.
I feel spicy today.
Yes. Well, I just had a 3-day weekend. We were recording this. I failed on all kinds of fronts.
Did you?
Did not do shit. I didn't work. I didn't do anything. I really just hung out with my dogs and relaxed and slept a lot and did some stuff, but I didn't do work-related stuff. So now I'm like...
No, yeah, today was
now I'm paying for
going through emails, right? I went down the street, like 10 houses down, and spent 8 or 9 hours each day at my neighbor's house because they have a pool and we drink just copious amounts of alcohol.
Nice. We had some...
The kids had fun. It was good.
Had some family friends come in on Saturday, and they like to look at the historic houses in Galveston, and so we drove around Galveston and looked at the houses and the wood carvings and stuff, the tree ones.
Yeah, the trees.
Yeah, and so we did that, and then she loves to feed the birds, so we had to stop so she could feed birds and all that kind of stuff.
Were the trees from Ike or they must have been from Ike.
Yeah, and instead of getting rid of them, they personalized them. So like there's an angel statue, and then there's one rabbit sanctuary that has an angel holding a rabbit, and there's
Do you know the story
dogs.
of that? Do you know the story of that? So I can totally talk about all the trees because so one of the ghost writers for Wizard of Oz lived in one of the houses, and so there's Toto, and I think the Tin Man who's in front of, so one of the trees was carved to be
I haven't seen that one.
Very Wizard of Oz-esque. Yeah. And then the one with the bunnies, the woman that owned that place, she doesn't own it. So she was a Playboy bunny.
Yes.
And so she had all these bunnies, and all of them but one died, and it was found with a kitten. And so the two little animals.
Yeah. So she had the bed and breakfast, and she had a bunch of bunnies out there and stuff. But because that's where the friends that came in from out of town used to stay. They love the bunnies. They're animal people. But she doesn't own it. It's someone else now. There's no more bunnies, but the statue's still there. The angel. Yeah. Anyways, if you guys don't know what we're talking about in Galveston, there's a bunch of beautiful trees and stuff that were carved. Yeah,
well, they were killed. All these trees were killed during Hurricane Ike, and so instead of getting rid completely all these trees, they were carved into like amazing works of art. They're just beautiful trees. It's one of my favorite things to show people who come to visit.
Yeah. So that's what we did.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Now we're here.
I hope everyone had a good 4th of July holiday for those that are in this country.
I hope you had a good weekend otherwise.
I know. We hope you had a good normal weekend for the rest of you.
I did not do a 3-day. I did not do a question of the week because, again, I didn't even remember we were recording today. I felt like yesterday was Sunday. So when I woke up this morning, I was like, shit, it's Tuesday and it's my week. There's no question of the week. So anyways. But I will talk about this beer. So Kat and the Not a Fucking Wizard went and bought me some blueberry beers, and I love it. This one is a blueberry Fullbrook cream ale, and I love it. It's just a little blueberry that looks like it's going to kick your ass. Like, it's like awesome.
It's like a fighting blueberry. It's amazing.
And it's
take a picture.
Yeah, I did. It's from Fullbrook Ale Works in Richmond, Texas, and it's really good. I mean, the flavor is so good. It's really well balanced.
I think this is the first time that we've had something from this brewery on, so we'll have to make sure to tag them when we post. But their art is just badass. So I think that was very simple and just awesome.
It's hard to find a good blueberry beer, and this one's really good.
Yay!
So if you like blueberries, I highly recommend it. Again, it's blueberry Fullbrook cream ale. 5.2%.
If you're in the Houston area, anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure you can find somebody who'll send it to you.
And she'll have blueberry for the next couple of episodes.
Yes, I'm excited. Listen, guys, I'm so unorganized. I don't bring beer. I don't
have a question of the week.
Yeah, I know, it's whatever. What are you drinking? What are you doing over there?
I have been planning my casino night
She's got
fundraiser.
2 over there.
No, I don't. Oh, this is what I had earlier.
Pre-game. Oh,
I pre-gamed with my husband. No, so I've been planning my casino night.
Yes.
Fundraiser. Oh my God. What is happening? My cat is in the wild mood right now.
He's very upset because we took his microphone down.
We did. It is St. Arnold's Double Down. It is a double IPA, and it is very casino themed.
I do like it.
9.2 ABV.
Oh.
I know.
Hey.
So it might get crazy up in here.
Yeah, well, it's not your week, so it'll be okay. You can just sit there and giggle the whole time. People are like, why are they laughing at such a serious story? Because we drink a lot.
So we're a part of lots of chambers, but we make friends with some people from certain chambers who get us. They get the magic that is Cashly.
Yes. They love it.
But one of the younger folks at one of the chambers was like, "Oh, I got you guys a new fan. We were so excited." They were driving from, she told me Pensacola. No, that's not where she was. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, so they were driving, and so they listened to one of our shows, and then she saw her friend the next day and was like, "Oh, you're still listening. You're still listening to these two girls who I see all the time." And I was like, "I'm so sorry. Is it embarrassing?" Because we are like, our shows are so different from what they see us as. Because I feel like we're always on our best behavior. If any of you can believe it, Sarah is the only person who sees us and who's actually seen us like this. But the rest of you have no idea. Like, when we have to be professional and business-like, we are great at that.
Who would have thunk?
But it's fun to say, like, oh God, we're kind of ridiculous on this show, and I think that's why we love it. It's a passion project. Like, It's done out of love and not because we have to, and we love that people listen.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure we're the only true crime podcast in our town, so we are kind of famous.
Which is bizarre.
I'm sure there's probably some in Houston, but here in our town, which I will not name,
little tiny place.
Anyways, I love it. So, like I said, I don't have question of the week, but I do have some trivia. The trivia, this first one has nothing to do with my story, but I tend to zone out and I start thinking of really weird questions, and so then I'll Google them, and then I just go down this rabbit hole of I'll start thinking like, why is that a thing? Who made that? And so today I was looking at my freckles and was like, started doing all kinds of research. And I think I Googled like, what percent of the population has freckles or something. Anyways, I came across this list of facts about freckles, and this little gem just stood out to me. In medieval times, freckles were considered witch marks. Freckles were said to be indicative of a woman's allegiance to the devil. Oh. So even though men had freckles during medieval times, only the women who had freckles were in allegiance with the devil. Oh. They were considered witches' marks. So I just thought that was a little interesting.
Well,
I have
Jason
tons
is
of freckles.
Them.
Yes, I am too.
That's just white people.
Well, according to this list, babies are not born with freckles. You get freckles from sun exposure.
So that's, oh my God. Louis is going to get you. You're talking about witches, and he's a black cat. So
he's like just peeking around my laptop, guys. I really wish you could see this cat.
Get you.
Okay, so these next bit of trivia, they do have to do with the theme of my story tonight. Okay. These are just very short facts about, I'm sorry. He's just like, this cat is just like slowly peeking over my laptop, and it's very unsettling.
It's because it's a black cat.
Well, it's because like I can only see his eyes. Like he just peeks up, like his whole body isn't visible. And he's never done this before, so it's just like, anyways. Okay, here are the facts. So 2 months after being crowned Miss Hispanic America, 23-year-old Laura was detained along with her boyfriend and 6 others for racketeering, drug trafficking, weapon violations, and money laundering. She was dubbed Miss Narco, and later when she lost her crown, they feel like her boyfriend, because he did have strong ties with the cartel, is why she won the crown. So there's that one.
Oh, wow.
Tara Connor celebrated her 2006 Miss USA win by relocating to New York City and binging on the Big Apple's nightlife. The Kentucky native became a staple of the city's gossip pages and soon fielding allegations of promiscuity. I cannot pronounce words, guys. You already know this.
Promiscuity.
And drug use unbecoming of her crown. Connor spent a stint in a rehab facility, and after her discharge, copped to alcoholism and cocaine use.
Hey.
I'm pretty sure she also spent a lot of time in the Trump Towers, and like she was on the Apprentice show and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, was she really? Oh.
So Miss Delaware Teen USA, Melissa King, resigned her crown in 2013 after an online sex video was released that people believed to have her in it. She never confirmed or denied it, but it was very, 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 very close to her likeness if it was not her. Former Miss Pima County, Arizona, was charged with kidnapping and assaulting her former boyfriend in 2008. She was officially charged with kidnapping, armed robbery, aggravated robbery, and 2 counts of aggravated assault. And finally, in 2006, Miss Great Britain Danielle Lloyd was stripped of her title after it was revealed that she was actually dating one of the judges the entire time.
Oh.
So, these are just a few beauty queens gone bad. If you haven't figured it out by now, my story tonight is a sort of beauty queen gone bad tonight. It is a local story to us, but the story is just so fascinating to me. It's just bizarre because it did happen so close to us, but just the way it happened, why it happened, all of those things, because you're just like, you hear these stories and you're like, that could never happen here, or that could never happen to us. But in reality, it could happen to anybody. For really dumb reasons, like what's going to be in this story tonight. So I'm talking about Christine Marie Paolilla. Yes, that's correct. Was born March 31st, 1986. No, that is right. I spelled it out. I just said it wrong. But she was born March 31st, 1986. So Christine was originally born on Long Island in New York. Her mother was named Lori. She was a stay-at-home mom. And her father was Charles. He was a construction worker. She did have one older brother. Nothing after this ever mentions her brother again. So I don't know what happened to him, where he is, or any of that. But when she was 2, her father was killed in a construction accident, and following this death, Lori just kind of lost her way. She started doing drugs. Yeah. She was abusing drugs. And so she lost custody of Christine and her brother, and the children went to live with their grandparents. So while there, when Christine was in kindergarten, she was diagnosed with alopecia, which caused her to lose her hair, eyebrows, eyelashes. And as a result of this hair loss, she was very self-conscious. She started to wear wigs, and she just had very poor vision. So she had like these super thick glasses. People described the wigs at the time as like Halloween wigs, and they said like she kind of looked like a clown. That's how classmates described her, right?
Oh my God.
And so, again, she was often bullied and ridiculed. In an interview on 2020, Lori stated that the classmates would come up behind Christine and just pull off her wigs. They would just bully her so incredibly much. So she dealt with
death of parent, lots of bullying,
this disease that she can't overcome.
Alopecia.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for a lot of people, your appearance is a big part of who you are. Your hair, just the way you look. So this just killed her confidence. Oh, so she was eventually reunited with her mother. Her mother had beat her drug addiction. She had gotten clean. She remarried. She was back to being who she originally was. And the family moved from New York to Clear Lake City, Texas. So Christine enrolled at Clear Lake High School, where she was befriended by 2 very popular students, Rachel Colorutis and Tiffany Rao. These girls were very popular. They were the in crowd. They were well liked. They were on all the sports teams, and they befriended her. They would help her buy new, better flattering wigs. They taught her how to do her makeup. They really took her under their wing.
That's nice. Yeah. Is it too good to be true? I'm waiting.
No.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Okay, good.
And so they were known to be those kinds of people that felt for the underdog, that wanted to help people.
Wow.
Tiffany was a was a talented actress. She wanted to grow up to be a social worker. Like, she really wanted to help people. And she was described as very fun, bubbly, talkative. Rachel was a very creative person. She was an artist. And in an interview with Lori, she said when Christine first met Tiffany and Rachel, she would come home. She'd be so excited about having 2 new friends. She would talk about how loving they were, how sweet they were, how fun they were, and like how nice to her they were. And Tiffany and Rachel, so they were a year ahead of Christine, and so they graduated in 2003, but they remained very close friends with Christine after they graduated. So in 2003, the year they graduated, Christine was voted Miss Irresistible by her school's student body, which seems like a really weird thing to have at a high school. But that was like a high school thing. Like, she was voted Miss Irresistible. And so that year, she also began a relationship. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't like that.
I don't know. I don't know if that's still a thing. That was not a thing when I was in high school. Like, we voted on like the most funny person or most likely to be successful, but not like who's the sexiest person or most like, I don't know. To me, in my own personal opinion, which I know not everyone likes when we give our opinions, but that is fucking weird. But she was voted Miss Irresistible by her school's student body. So that year, she began this relationship with so she's 17. She starts this relationship with a 21-year-old man named Christopher Lee Snyder.
She's how old?
17. He is 21. So Lori and her stepfather disapprove of this from day one. Rachel and Tiffany disapprove of it. Like, they don't like him. They try to talk her out of it. Christopher was a frequent drug user. He had an extensive criminal record. His own family thought they were awful together. They would call the cops on Christopher and Christine because they would get into these arguments. They would get into fights. Like, the family would be scared of how things were escalating, and so they would often report them. And but they stayed together. They were just doing drugs together. They were in this really toxic relationship. And in this relationship, Christine would just increasingly use various drugs, and they were only together for a year, but this year was just awful. And Rachel and Tiffany tried to help her. They tried to give her advice. They tried to support her. But, I mean, she just wouldn't listen to anyone, right? Like, she was in love. She was addicted to drugs. Right. Like, she had low self-confidence. And now she was being voted Miss Irresistible. So now she was, like, found this person who wanted to be with her. And so she just had this very skewed view on things.
Well, can I just put in a plug here? Yeah. There's a great documentary on PBS that I think like everybody would be interested in. It's the new Ken Burns documentary. He's very famous for making these amazing long format documentaries, but it's called Hiding in Plain Sight. And it explains, like you're just saying, like she had this awful loss and found peace in her, she was looking for something to fix what was wrong. And so it was drugs and alcohol and an unhealthy relationship. And so how much of that is normal growing up, and then how much of that is actually like a mental health issue. And so it really dives into that. And so it's like, you're listening. So that is actually like going on in my head while I'm listening, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like red flag. Like,
I mean, she had so many things happen to her because her father died when she was 2.
Yeah,
and then her mother became a drug addict, and she got taken away and moved somewhere else, and then she got the hair loss, and then she got back with her mother, and then her mother was remarried already, and they moved across the country. Like, a lot of this is happening in the intensive. I'm not excusing the things that happened in the story, but she did suffer so much abuse. And early on, like, your early years are when you really start developing those what's right, what's wrong, like those personal connections and how to act in social. And she had no one because her father died and her mother was a drug addict. And she just didn't have what a lot of people are very fortunate to have. And so... anyways, so they dated for a year. And so Lori would later recall that Snyder isolated her daughter from her friends and family and indicated that she had been raped and that the relationship was both abusive and dysfunctional. Now, on that note, I saw a lot of stuff about the abusive and dysfunctional part, but I did not see anywhere else or any kind of mention of Christine claiming she was raped. Like even in interviews with Christine, because you can watch all of Christine's interviews are on YouTube.
Were they saying that he was raping her as a 21-year-old, but not like statutory rape?
I don't know. The mother just claims that Christine told her she was being raped, but Christine has never claimed. Like I watched a bunch of documentaries. I watched a bunch of interviews with her because she was on 2020 and they did interviews of her when she had been arrested, like in jail. And in none of those did she mention rape. She mentioned abuse and dysfunctional and like mental, like psychological stuff that Snyder supposedly did, but didn't bring up like that he ever raped her. So I'm not sure, but I wanted to include it because it was in an interview with the
Stop.
Yes.
And make sure that the up top is steady. All of those are tightened all the way.
Yeah.
Turn it to your right.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me try that again.
All right.
So I did want to include that the mother said she was raped just because it wasn't an interview with the mother. And I don't know if it's true or not. So I just wanted to include it because it was said. So
I wonder if there isn't like a hesitancy for her to say it. I mean, assuming
she
that her
literally admits
like,
to all kinds of other stuff.
Really?
So
okay, never mind,
as the story goes on, you'll be like, why was that not included? You know what I mean? Like of all the things that she admits to and stuff. So anyways, I personally, in the things I heard, did not hear. Maybe she did, but the ones that I saw, I didn't hear that. So Snyder's family said this relationship was extremely dysfunctional. They said Christine was prone to jealousy. After one fight with Snyder, Christine spent the entire night on the front lawn of his family's house and threatened to kill his family.
Oh my gosh.
So while she didn't kill his family, she did go on to commit murder. On July 18th, 2003, Christine and Snyder went to her friend Tiffany's home in the Brook Forest subdivision in Clear Lake. There were several people at this home at the time. Tiffany, who was 18, Tiffany's boyfriend, Marcus Priscilla, who was 19, Marcus's cousin, Aldebert Sanchez, who was 21, and Rachel, who was 18. Now, as you know, Tiffany and Rachel were her friends. They were always nice to her. They took her under her arm. So according to Christine, she and Snyder had planned to, in one interview, she says they planned to just go and steal the drugs and get out of there. In another interview, she says that they intentionally went there to steal. In one interview, it says that she went there to hang out and do drugs. In another interview, she says they intentionally went there to steal the drugs. But either way, they went there for drugs. So they had planned to steal the drugs that were kept at the house, but Snyder reportedly got into an argument with Marcus. So at the time, Christine and Rachel were in another room. Okay. I believe it was Rachel, but she was in the room with another Tiffany or Rachel. Okay. The other three were in the living room. They had all been relaxing. They were watching TV. So it was like there was nothing to be had about an argument. And so when Christine, this is all according to Christine because there are no other witnesses to tell the story. Mm-hmm. So when they come back in the room, Christine claims that Snyder had pointed a gun at Marcus. There was an argument, and she doesn't know what caused that argument, but she pulled a gun on Snyder's command out of her purse. So she conveniently had a gun. So anyways.
Whoa. That's a teen. Okay.
Yeah. So, but Snyder reportedly got into an argument with Marcus, and that led to the shooting of all four people at the home. All four victims were shot multiple times. After they committed this crime, once they got outside, Christine decided that they needed to make sure everyone was dead. She told Snyder, we need to go back and make sure everyone's dead. So, but Snyder didn't want to go. She went. So she went back inside. And this is when she discovered that Rachel was still alive. She was choking on her own blood. She was reaching for her cell phone where she had typed in 911. Oh my God. She had not pushed the send button yet. Christine tried to shoot her in the head.
What?
However, there was no bullet left. So with the butt of the .38 caliber revolver, which she had in her purse, which was hers, which she used to shoot other people, she bashed into Rachel's skull until she was made sure that she was dead. This is she claims that Rachel said to her last words were, "Why are you doing this to me? I was nothing but a friend to you."
That's so sad.
So Rachel and Tiffany were both shot in the crotch, which was a sign of sexual jealousy. Snyder and Christine left so little evidence at the crime scene that the police really had nothing to go on. So when they arrived, it led the police to suspect that the killings were drug related, as Marcus was a known drug dealer. They assumed it was just a drug deal gone bad. They didn't know. There was nothing. It's not like they left like a bunch of forensic evidence. So Alderbert had moved to Clear Lake.
They knew they had fingerprints.
But there were so many people in there. I'll explain that a little bit in a minute. But there was a reason why they couldn't really get forensic. A true idea of who was in the house, who wasn't, who was there when it happened, who wasn't. Okay. So the cousin had moved to Clear Lake to get away from violence on the north side, to change his life around. He really wanted supposedly to change, and he'd only been in Clear Lake for about a week or two before losing his life.
Oh my God.
And here's an hour after the murders, 1 hour. Christine told Snyder that she wanted to just continue. So she went continue on about the day. So he drove her to Walgreens, where she worked at the makeup counter like just any other day, not even fazed about what had just happened. So the only evidence police had were descriptions of suspects who were seen walking to and from the home by neighbors. So the investigators said that when they're asking people questions, they don't say, "Did you see anything out of the ordinary?" They say it's all in how you ask the question. So they said, "Did you see something today that you don't normally see?"
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Yes. And he said, because then that triggers something different, a different response than "Do you see anything?"
A truck at the corner that's never there kind of a thing.
They said, "Did you see something today that you don't normally see?" And one of the neighbors said, my husband and I were in the kitchen standing and we just happened to look outside, and we saw two people walking down the street. And the only description they could give was that they were in all black, and that they looked to be very young in age, and that the woman had unusually large eyes, and that she was wearing a bandana. That was it.
Unusually large eyes?
Yeah, like unusually large. Like maybe because of her disease, because she lost her vision and stuff. So I don't know.
Oh yeah.
But that's all they had. The sketch artist did not have a whole lot to go on. She had to show them. She had this book in one of the interviews that has tons and tons of pictures of people, and asked the neighbors to point out features on these different people that matched what they saw. And so she drew the sketch. But the sketch artist herself said at the end of the day, it just looked like two very basic looking normal people that didn't look like the type of people that would be doing these brutal murders. Okay. Oh. So that's it. That's all they had. That's the only evidence. So the police described the murder scene as a slaughterhouse. They said,
that's awful.
They said there was blood splatter everywhere. The victims were drenched in blood, bullet holes in every direction. Furniture was soaked in it. The body placement, according to police, said it appeared as if they were really caught off guard. They were not alarmed at all. They were not suspecting this to happen, which makes the story of Christine claiming that she came out and there was an argument going on to seem a little suspicious, because the body placement made it seem like they were not at all alarmed. They just thought they were hanging out with friends. So in total, there were 21 bullets that were shot. 17 of them hit the victims. The police said it was a pretty gruesome scene. It was the bullets were intended for the victims, and most of the shots made it. 17 out of 21 actually hit the victims. So during this investigation, this goes into why it was hard to tell forensic-wise. The investigators learned that Tiffany, who was only 18, was living in this house by herself because her father had gotten married and moved out and left her there. And so there was completely unsupervised. Oh my God. It was known to be a party house. There were a lot of drugs coming in and out.
Well, when you're unsupervised.
There was a lot of just people in and out of this house all the time. It was a well-known party house. And so because of that, it made it very hard to pinpoint who could have been a suspect, because anybody could have known there were drugs there. Anybody could have gotten upset about an incident. Anybody could have, there were fingerprints everywhere in the house of different people.
But the bullet could have only come from...
Yes, but they didn't have the gun.
They didn't have the gun.
They had no gun, so they didn't. I mean, they knew that the bullets came from a particular type of gun.
But was that gun registered to her, or she just had it?
Well, there was a 9mm and a 38 caliber. She used the 38 caliber. He used the 9mm, but there were just bullets.
Wow.
So they knew that there were two different guns. They knew there were two different shooters. They did not know who the suspects were. They did not know why the suspects chose these people, because on the surface, everyone that was shot looked, I mean, Tiffany wanted to be a social worker. Rachel was a very creative person. They were very well liked. They were very positive people. They had just graduated high school. Like, police could not...
her friends.
Well, yes. And the sad thing is, yes, they were all friends, but they had just graduated high school. And again, because of the actions of the boyfriends, this case would just go unsolved because they assumed it was related to the boyfriend's drug dealing. There was a very popular theory was that it was a professional hit, because both men were drug dealers. Both of the boyfriends were drug dealers, and Adalbert had family members in Mexico that were tied to the mafia, and a lot of them were incarcerated in prisons, and they were known for trafficking like heavy amounts of drugs across St. Lawrence. And so they thought maybe this was an attempt to retaliation, or maybe it was to shut someone up. And unfortunately, the girls were just victims of that. So that's the theory they were going on for a long time.
Wow.
Is that it was related to the guys. Like they had
a cartel.
Yeah. Well, that, or just drug related. Like I mean, it was kind of, but at the same time, they just did not ever imagine it being friends of Rachel. They did not think it was because of Rachel and Tiffany's friendship with someone. They thought it was the boyfriends. You know what I'm saying? So they never, ever even thought about
But like
Christine.
you said, the shots to their...
Yes.
To their crotches. Like, sounds weird to say it in plural, but...
Yes.
But that was so personal.
Yes. That
it almost like, whoa.
Yeah.
Did they have any boyfriends? Who's the remaining friend?
Yeah.
I feel like that should have been the...
So, as a really sad, heartbreaking side note, when the investigators looked inside Rachel's wallet, they found a picture of Christine, because Rachel was Christine's best friend. And in Rachel's eyes, they were the best of friends. She loved Christine. Her family knew about Christine. They loved Christine. So... none of the families ever, but Christine did not attend the funeral of any of them, which would have been a red flag number one to me.
Me too. Did she mourn appropriately?
Well, according to the mother, Christine's mother, she said that the day it happened and for 3 days after, Christine was so distraught that she slept in the bed. Like, she wanted to sleep in her parents' bed with them. Like, she was so devastated, but they did not know that she was
responsible for,
Yeah, they just thought that she was mourning the only two, like, friends that she had, you know? And so they did not, at this time, suspect it was their daughter. And the families of the two girls did not, because of the friendship. But for me, a red flag would have been the fact that she did not attend the funeral. But maybe some people just, they can't handle it and they don't. I don't know. But that would have been a red flag to me in a case that's unsolved. So in 2004, Christine and Snyder ended their relationship after Snyder was jailed in Kentucky for a car theft. Excuse me. Sorry. Shortly thereafter, Christine entered rehab in Kerrville, Texas. And it was in rehab that she met a man named Stanley Justin Rott. That's what his name is. R-O-T-T. That's the only things I can... I mean, I don't know. Anyways, he was a heroin user with whom she began a relationship. Great start. Any relationship that starts in rehab seems a little red flag to me. But again, I'm just an outsider. So who am I to judge? They had vowed to start this new life without drugs, even though they met in rehab as drug users.
Always the best intentions.
Yes. They vowed to start this new life. They were supposedly very in love. The couple married in March 2005, so like less than a year later. And it was around this time that Christine, she was 18 at this time, she came into a $360,000 trust fund.
What?
From when her father had died.
What? Oh my God.
So Christine used a portion of this money to buy a condo with Justin. She was just out there living her best fucking life, even though she had taken the lives of 4 people, 2 of whom
excess money is also not very good for drug addicts, but okay.
So she had all this money. She was living her best life. Like, she did not kill 4 people, 2 of whom were her best friends, who helped change her life. She just was out there getting married and living her life and working and having this condo and coming into all of this money, more money than most people will have in their lifetime. $360,000 just given to her. So in July 2005, the second anniversary of the murders, Christine just happened to see a newscast on the TV about the unsolved case of her friends. She became quite upset because this is the first time she saw sketches of the suspects given by neighbors, which clearly looked like her. And so it was at this point that she confessed to her husband that she and Snyder had committed the murders. Up until that point, he had no idea. He didn't know her when the murders happened. He didn't even live in the same town when the murders happened. And so up until this point, he had no idea. So at this point, the couple went into hiding together. He ran away with her.
Her husband was okay with running away. Okay. All right. Okay.
They met in rehab.
I guess that's true.
She had $360,000.
Okay.
By November 2005, Christine and Justin were living in a motel room in La Quinta motel room in San Antonio. And for the next 8 months, the couple holed up in the room, shooting heroin and cocaine. Christine used the entire remaining amount of her trust fund on drugs. And according to interviews with her, she herself says they were buying at least $1,000 of heroin a day.
Oh my God.
Police would later describe this as the most disgusting room they had ever seen.
I bet.
She and her husband had asked the maids to not clean the room and to never enter the room. There were just needles upon needles everywhere, food and trash. In later interviews with the husband, Justin would say she never left the room one time. The whole over 9-month time, the only time I ever left was to get food or drugs. She stayed in the room until the police came for her. According to Houston Police Sergeant at the time, Brian Harris, he said it was almost like a crime scene inside this hotel room. There's blood on the walls, hundreds of needles, used needles on the ground, boxes of brand new needles ready to go, and then literally about 80 to 85 needles lined up on a dresser with heroin already inside of them. The room reeked. He said that when they would use the needles and they would pull the needles out, it would cause a mist in the air because all of it wasn't used. So there was just a blood mist in the room. He said it was on the walls. It was on the sheets. It was everywhere. Like when they would pull out, So it just created
blood mist.
That's what they said.
I have never heard that term before. I wish I've never heard that term.
Listen, I watched a lot of interviews on this and I wish I had not. But yes, they said whenever they would inject themselves with the heroin and then they would pull the needle out and there would be blood. I mean, that happens.
Right.
But they said it would release a mist into the air. And so it was just on the walls.
9 months.
Everywhere.
It said the police. They burn the place down afterwards?
I don't know.
I mean, how do you clean that?
The pictures are gross.
Oh my God.
So the police described the couple as being mere weeks away from death.
Weeks? Jeez.
Christine was only surviving on Ritz crackers and cheese and copious amounts of heroin. That's it. That's all she would eat was Ritz crackers and cheese. On July 8th, 2006, 3 years after the murders, police received an anonymous tip from Crime Stoppers regarding the murder of the 4 victims. The male caller told police that he had been in rehab with Christine and that she had admitted to him as being a participant in the crime. The mail call revealed that she had told him in detail what it was like to kill 4 people, and she even told him about the one thing that was never released to the public. So when all of this happened, the police never told the public that Rachel's head died of blunt force trauma. They told everyone that all 4 victims had died of gunshot.
Was it her husband? Was it her husband?
Well, that's what I thought. I thought it was going to be her husband, but it came out later that it was not Justin who called in, even though that's what I originally thought. But it was another person who was in rehab.
So she was just talking.
I don't know. Maybe she doesn't, depending on how into her drugs she was when she first entered. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like, who knows if she remembers even telling him.
Wow.
So when they arrested Christine, okay, so let me back up. The way they found them is when the tip came in, they traced her ATM withdrawals to the area, and then found her that way. Like, they discovered her that way because they were withdrawing $1,000 a day for drugs. So they were not very careful about this paper trail. They just didn't care. So when they arrested Christine, her driver's license picture looked identical to the police artist sketch, which has me like, how the hell did no one recognize her?
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
Because the family of Rachel and Tiffany, they had billboards put up everywhere with the sketch artist. With the sketch. It was like all like billboards had, like the "Have you seen this?" or "Can you identify?"
Yes.
And like it was on the news and everything. And if she looked identical to the sketch, how did nobody?
So what's your theory?
I feel like
no theory.
I mean, just
it seemed too implausible that her best friend would be the reason.
That would be the only thing I think of, is that nobody just could honestly believe that it was Christine, right? Like, nobody had any idea that she could do something like this. So
how could her best friend be the... Yeah.
So police tracked Christine down to San Antonio. They arrested her on July 19th, 2006. Justin was also arrested as police found 70 vials of heroin in the room, and he was on probation for another crime. And he had failed to make an appearance with his probation officer, so they had all reasons to arrest him as well. So after their arrest, Justin told the police everything.
He did?
He told them everything. He told the police that Christine had confessed to him, that she'd been an active participant in the murders.
And that he was an accessory to...
He was not an accessory.
Well, no, he was aiding and abetting.
He didn't report her, yeah.
Yeah.
He stated that Christine had been the one who had told Snyder that she was going to go back in the house. He told him that she's the one that beat Rachel to death with the gun.
Oh, my God.
He said that she's the one that told him what her last words were. And he served as the key witness in her trial in order to avoid being charged with the heroin because, again, he was already on probation and he didn't want to go to prison.
Oh, my God.
So he told them everything.
So I guess because he also has spousal... What is that word? There's like...
Well, I thought it was where spouses did not testify against each
that's
other.
Something. There's a word. That's a word. But
I don't know
there's a word. I don't know the word now.
He did not abide by that because he was like, no. He's like, hell no.
He's not going to jail.
He did not want to go to prison. So he said, this was all her idea. She plotted everything. She had the gun. She told me that she shot them in the front, that she's the one that killed Rachel, that she's the one that wanted to go back, that it was her car that they drove there, that it was her that wanted to go on the run. So he just laid it all out. And so Christine initially denied killing her friends. She denied everything. She said it was all Snyder, that she didn't want to do it, that she didn't even go inside the house. She claims that she was in the car, like parked like down the street. She said she never even went in the driveway. And they're like, well, why did you park down the street? And then she's like, well, I mean, I didn't park down the street. Like, I parked out in front of the driveway. I was waiting for him to come out. So her story kept changing. She really tried to make it sound like she was so abused and so manipulated by Snyder that's why like this happened. But eventually she did admit to participating in the murders. Again, she did still at that time place all the blame on Christopher Snyder. So on July 21st, 2006, Christine and Snyder, who had not yet been apprehended, like Snyder hadn't, were charged for capital murder. So Christine's bail was set at $500,000 as she was considered a flight risk. In June of 2006, a month before all this happened, Snyder had moved to Greenville, South Carolina, which, interestingly enough, I used to live near there. I lived near both cities involved, and I don't think this is the first case that we've covered where I've lived near both cities that murders have happened.
Nope.
So I'd just like to put a plug out there that I'm not a serial killer. I have no part of any of these stories. Not a participant. I just happen to live where a lot of serial killers travel from. I don't know what to tell you guys. So anyways, when he moved to Greenville, he started living with this woman he had met online. After Christine was arrested, one of Snyder's family members called him to give him a heads up that the police had issued a warrant for his arrest in relation to these murders. So, acting on the tip that Snyder may have committed suicide, police immediately went to Greenville. They searched near an area where Snyder was reported to be seen, and they found his decomposing body in a heavily wooded area on August 5th, 2006. It was later determined that he had overdosed intentionally on prescription medication painkillers.
Oh my God.
So, all of the stuff in the interviews, in the stories, and the articles is all Christine's side of things. You don't hear his side. You don't obviously hear the victim's side. It's all of what she's claiming happened in the order that she claims it happened, right? Like they can't really deny or prove very much of it, other than what she's told people happened. So they don't, Christopher never told anybody.
That is so frustrating. That is so like, oh, yeah. They deserve to have their side of the story. Yeah. They absolutely do.
So, I mean, not that I think I would believe Christopher's side of it, but I do hate that he got the easy.
But everybody deserves. She sounds like this sort of.
In her interviews, she sounds so manipulative. She sounds like a very manipulative person.
In Justin's recounting of it, it's like she's the mastermind in some of these things. And it sounded like from the beginning that she had a bone to pick. She was jealous, or there's something, there's these two girls who were extremely nice to her who she still fucking hated.
And honestly, to me,
or was jealous of, maybe not hated, but
I almost wonder if after she told her husband she didn't want him to report her, so she started buying the heroin knowing he was a former heroin addict. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like drugging him up.
Right.
Because it wasn't up until that point, until they went on the run, that she started buying copious amounts of it. Granted, he could have said no. He did make his choices, but an addict is you're going to have that addiction.
Right.
And it wasn't fair. It was in his face.
Absolutely.
And he had just learned this horrific detail about his wife that he married.
100%.
And so I'm not saying I'm just saying it is such an awful thing for her to do.
So, because she was $1,000 a day and
sending him to get it and all kinds of stuff. She wouldn't go get it.
That's manipulative.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know. So I feel bad for everyone involved in this story except for Christine.
Except for her.
But at her trial in 2008, Christine's attorney used her childhood abuse in her defense. Mental health professionals maintained the years of isolation were psychologically scarring, and the constant rejection warped Christine's views of social interaction.
That's not untrue. That's not untrue. And that isn't to be discounted.
Yeah.
But then as an adult, there's at some point you have to be made responsible for your choices, even though, yes, there's all these things. At some point you have to have accountability. Does she have a mental health issue? Probably. Was it ever dealt with? No. Doesn't sound like. She was self-medicating early, right?
Yeah.
She was self-medicating by high school?
Yeah, she was doing cocaine and stuff with that guy. Mm-hmm. And then she went on to do heroin and cocaine.
Not a healthy person.
Yeah. They proposed it made her more likely to turn to drugs and violent behavior. And on October 13th, 2008, Christine was convicted of 4 counts of capital murder, as she had been a juvenile offender when the killings actually took place. She was spared the death penalty, which I think is total bullshit. But she was spared the death penalty. The following day, she was sentenced to life in prison. She filed an appeal on November 29th, 2008, which this appeal makes no sense, on the grounds that the trial court abused its discretion in setting her amount of bail to $500,000. I don't even know what that means.
Well, I mean, depending on what state you're in, you know, like in Texas, I think it's like $100,000, even if you have capital punishment, which is nothing for some people.
I just feel like if you weren't going to flee, what do you care if it was $500,000 or,
right.
You know what I mean? Anyways, that was the appeal they made. An appeals panel decision decided the court did not abuse its discretion and affirmed Christine's original original sentence. And she has filed many additional appeals. They have all been denied. So for anyone who may, yes. What?
I'm clapping.
Oh, yeah.
Clapping.
For anyone who may care, I don't know where he is today, but shortly after Christine's trial, Justin was said to be living with friends and attending recovery meetings. He was still married to Christine, but was in the process of filing for divorce.
Good.
As part of his 12-step recovery program, he said he had to do what was right, which meant sharing what he knew about the murders. He also claimed his wife's tales about that night had given him nightmares.
Oh, my God.
He says, when she mentioned it to me, it was so overwhelming. I couldn't believe she was this person I married. Rott said chain smoking and drinking water during a very lengthy interview. He said, I didn't understand it. It was so much of a shock, and I was in complete denial. So during an interview where he was recounting the story told him by Christine, he claims that she said their intentions that day were to just hang out and do drugs, and she was in a different room when Snyder pulled out the gun. Christine does not know what transpired to lead Christopher to draw the gun. They were all friends. They all knew each other. The four were pleading for their lives, Rott said. They were saying, take whatever you want and just go. At no time did they try to defend themselves in a physical or verbal manner. So, as of 2020, Christine is still incarcerated at the Mountain View unit in Gatesville, Texas, and I'm assuming she's still there, and will be eligible for parole in 2046 at the age of 60. Her case has been featured on so many different shows: 2020, Snapped, Killer Kids, Forensic Files, Deadly Women, and Red Rum. The interviews, I did watch Killer Kids. I watched the Forensics Files episode, but 2020 had a bunch of YouTube videos where they break down the police interrogation into different segments that you can watch. Like, they have one where she had just been arrested and she's going through her withdrawal and they're trying to talk to her about stuff. And then they have some where she's already been convicted and the whole time she's just fake crying. Like, you can tell she's not really crying, but she kind of sounds like she is, and like just keeps blaming. She does not take the blame for any of this, really. She still says she was manipulated and that it was all Christopher, which is easy to say about a person who's not here to tell their side of things.
And it's so obviously untrue. Untrue.
And
all of it.
Yeah. So she's still in prison. She still says she wasn't responsible, that it wasn't her idea, that she was being forced to do the things that she did. And so that's where we're at. That's what she claims. That's the story of Christine, who was once Miss Irresistible turned to mass murderer. So that's my story.
Dun, 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 dun. These two people. Yeah. I have sympathy for her younger self. There's so many things that just kept kind of like click. Okay, here's a check mark. Your parent died. Check mark this. Check mark that. Yeah. Like, all of these things led up to having somebody be so mentally unstable or unhealthy.
I mean, when you see your own parent coping with the loss by using drugs and becoming a drug addict, I feel like it's very hard for you to not fall. I mean, you see that all the time with child abuse victims that become child abusers. You see that with people who drink, like their parents were alcoholics, they become alcoholics. Like, you see it all of the time.
And so there is sympathy for that young person. But then she started to make decisions that don't also go in line. I mean, you have it. I have it. We all have history that is really shitty, but we also didn't go and kill people.
Yeah.
You me. Like, we could have been those people, but that's not the direction that we went, you know, like, so I do have sympathy for that young person. And then it, like, her, whatever mental health issue that she had, it took her in this, like, extremely crazy direction, like, in a lethal direction.
And for her to not take any blame, I mean, at the end of the day,
is that narcissism?
Snyder would not have known where Tiffany lived. He would not even known about Tiffany and Rachel. He would not have known about the drugs. Christine is the one that knew about all that stuff.
Right.
And took him there. So, and she had a gun in her purse. I don't know what she thought it was going to be for, unless they had premeditated something happening. Because why else would you go to someone's house with a loaded gun?
But also not taking any responsibility for that. And that is just, that's my narcissism trigger. I have a trigger like for narcissists. So I'm like, if you can't accept responsibility at all, then I have that, whatever sympathy I had for you it erodes completely.
There was at one time a really good Netflix documentary about her, and I could not find it at this time. It may still be on there, but it's American Crime Story, and it's about her. But like I said, I watched a bunch of the YouTube videos of the 2020 episodes, and the whole forensics file about her case is on YouTube. So even if you don't have these streaming services, you can still just go to YouTube and type in Miss Irresistible, and all kinds of interviews. All kinds of interviews and podcasts and forensics people, all kinds of stuff's on there talking about the case and her in general and what happened. And there's no shortage of stuff out there on her.
Well, awesome. I'm sure you'll have all the
links. I have the links to as the Netflix one was American Crime Story, from Miss Irresistible to Murder. Forensics Files was season 14 episode 12, and Snapped was season 10 episode 5. But I will put all of those. I don't know when the 2020 episode was, but I do have the YouTube links for the videos on YouTube. I don't know when they originally aired. But anyways, I will have all that in the show notes.
Well, we don't have a question of the week this week. That's okay. Girl, that's okay. But what a good story.
Yeah. So this was actually suggested by Robert, a friend of mine that listens to the show a lot.
Hi, Robert.
Yeah. And so
hi.
He's submitted he's given me quite a few ideas. And so anyways, just some quick things for you guys. Next week is our 150th episode. Yes, so we're going to have some stories from listeners. You still have time to submit yours. We're going to have a special guest. Yes, please, anyone that's listening, leave us a voicemail on our website and we will play it during the episode.
I promise we will.
Yes.
We need to.
Or send us a voice thing on Facebook or whatever. Just send us a message.
If you have our cell phone, send it through that or text messaging. Whatever.
However you got to get it to us, just get it, because we want to play as many things in our episode as we can, because it's a fan appreciation episode. So please. Anyways, we're on all the things. Love us, share us. We love you guys.
We love you so much, and we hope that you participate in next week's big milestone. Oh my God, 150 episodes. It just like blows my mind all the time. I just look and see, oh my God, we've been doing this. You and I, remember that morning I called you and said, hey, we're going to start a podcast.
Yes.
And you're like, what?
Because we went and saw our favorite podcast that same night.
I know. It's like, okay, I decided we're having a podcast and we're going to talk about beer and true crime, of course. And so it happened in the next week we were doing a podcast. Yes. So if you've been listening to us since the beginning, we really love you. And if you have binge listened, I binge watch episodes on Netflix, I finished Netflix though, so now I'm on Peacock and PBS. Yes. But if you've been with us from the beginning, we love you. But even if you've just started and are catching up, we love you even more. Oh my goodness! But 150 episodes is not a small feat. We're still here, and we're still getting listeners from all over the world, which is just amazing. We appreciate all of you. So we'd love to hear your stories, whether you're in the US or not, whether you're in Texas or not, whether you've been a long-time listener or not, we want to hear from you. So make sure to reach out to us however you can. But so until next week, our 150th episode is next week.
Don't commit murder.
Hey, don't kill anybody. Stay safe. Be kind.
Yes.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye.